BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
We're at the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee, and there are some sights to see here. I'm sure you've seen plenty, Anthony, too. My highlights are a man in a suit, which is patterned to look like it's a brick wall. He turns up at most Donald Trump events to chant, "Build the wall, build the wall." Some merch like you cannot believe, including Bibles signed by Donald Trump that go for an unbelievable price, and a limestone bust carving of Trump himself. What have you spotted, Anthony?
Well, we've got flags everywhere, big Republican signs outside the arena, and of course all the different state delegations on the floor of the convention hall. Near and dear to my heart, of course, is the Texas delegation, who are all wearing red Western shirts and their trademark cowboy hats, Stetsons, and you can spot them from anywhere. There are more Texans than almost any other state, and they are very proud about it, as Texans usually are.
Those hats are ludicrously big, Anthony. Why are they so big?
The bigger the hat, the bigger the Texan. I think so. No, they're very proud of them, and they want people to be able to see them from far away.
And of course, the big news from here today is that Donald Trump has picked his running mate, his vice presidential candidate.
Yes, that's JD Vance, the senator from Ohio, is now going to be Donald Trump's running mate.
Welcome to Americast.
Americast from BBC News.
Let me start off with two words. Made in America.
I'm not running for sainthood here. I'm running for president.
I did everything right and they indicted me.
I can chew and walk gum at the same time.
There is no indication of aliens or extraterrestrial activity.
We will fight the woke in education. We will fight the woke in the businesses. We will never, ever surrender to the woke mob.
Nobody should have to go to jail for smoking weed, right?
Aren't you guys tired of covering this?
Hello, it's Sarah here in Milwaukee at the Republican National Convention.
And it's Anthony sitting right across from Sarah here in the security zone of the Republican National Convention in downtown Milwaukee.
Yeah, we're not in the actual hall. We can get in there, but we've chosen not to because it's unbelievably loud. Whether it's the music or the speeches, you wouldn't be able to hear us. So we're in the media center where all the journalists have been exiled to.
Right, and all of this, it's a strange bubble at these conventions because they put up fencing for blocks all the way around downtown. I mean, normally this is the NBA basketball arena that's just across the street. We're in a convention center. There's another sports arena there, and then there are restaurants and shops all over here. But all of that now is inside that security zone, so it makes for a little kind of Republican fantasy amusement park in the midst of this Midwestern city.
Now, this convention was always going to be newsmaking, but of course it has been transformed by the fact that Donald Trump was nearly assassinated at the weekend. So the first time people are really going to see him after that incident is going to be when he appears here at the convention later tonight. That's going to be an incredible moment, I think. But news has been made already here because it's been announced who Donald Trump has chosen as his running mate. And the big news for Americasters is one of us got our vice presidential pick correct.
Who could that have been? I picked JD Vance to be the VP. When was that? Was that March, I think? It was a while ago when he was not considered a front runner. But if you look at why JD Vance made for a good pick, because he's from that Midwestern area next to Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, he can attract the white working class voter and get them to turn out in a way that Donald Trump really needs to win those states. And then he has a good pedigree, the being a best-selling author of Hillbilly Elegy. He went to Yale Law School, which Donald Trump, for all the populism in Donald Trump, he loves talking about Ivy League schools and people who go to Ivy League schools. So I think it ticked a lot of boxes, and he's younger.
Yeah, he's only 39, so he's the first millennial ever on a presidential ticket. And of course, as you say, Anthony, I mean, he came to everybody's attention when he wrote that bestseller, Hillbilly Elegy, and that was about his own upbringing in Ohio and in Kentucky, where he grew up in a working class family, very, very poor. His mother was addicted to drugs. He was largely raised by his grandparents. And that book was seized on after Donald Trump was first elected as an explanation, well, largely for the sort of liberal elite, to try and understand the white working class vote in America that had supported Donald Trump. And so he was seen as this kind of savant who could explain Trumpism to America. But at the time, he was not a Trumper. I mean, that book wasn't written in celebration of Donald Trump, was it, Anthony?
No, it wasn't. And actually, JD Vance was critical of Donald Trump in 2016. He thought he would be bad for America, that he was a demagogue. There was a text message he sent to a friend of his from law school comparing Donald Trump to an American Hitler. All of this, not surprising given JD Vance's background, perhaps, but it could be used against him by Democrats going forward. Already are using it against him in social media posts, and it also may have been a strike against him for Donald Trump. But I guess he has been a vocal enough advocate for Donald Trump recently on television, in the Senate, and policy-wise, they are in the same place that it was a pick that Donald Trump was happy with.
Yeah, because he went on this extraordinary journey, didn't he, from describing Donald Trump not just as America's Hitler, but as bad as heroin, and said only idiots would vote for him. Then when he decided he wanted to run for the Senate himself, he came around and actually started seeking Donald Trump's support. He wanted Donald Trump's endorsement to try and get him elected. He became very close friends with Donald Trump Jr., and the two of them are still close today, and that was what helped him move into Donald Trump's orbit. And then he went down to Mar-a-Lago to, I don't know if it was beg, certainly probably plead for Donald Trump's endorsement, which did end up with Trump coming and supporting him at a rally in Ohio, but humiliating him at the same time, because he told the crowd there that JD Vance is kissing my ass to get this nomination. But the other test of loyalty in the Trump world, of course, is that you have to agree with him when he says he won the 2020 election. Now, of course, we know he didn't, but he insists that those around him go on saying that actually he won that and the election was stolen by Joe Biden.
Right, and not only does JD Vance say that Donald Trump really won that election, but he also said that if he were in Mike Pence's shoes as vice president in 2020 and 2021, that he would have blocked certification of Joe Biden's presidential victory. That's something that Mike Pence said he wouldn't do. He accepted the results of the election. JD Vance said he'd do something entirely different, that he would have accepted those other electors, thrown it back to the states, and it would have been chaos, because Congress would not have, at least it would have been a legal chaos, because then people wouldn't know what to do next as far as whether that certification was valid or not.
So we've talked about how he could help Trump electorally, and it's because he's got connections to that white working class vote, and that he's from the Rust Belt, so Donald Trump will hope that he can help him with the key swing states of Wisconsin, where we are now, Michigan and Pennsylvania, which could be vital to who wins this election. But Anthony, let's talk about what it means for the administration if they win. I mean, people have been speculating before that we could tell what Donald Trump's mood was going to be like by who he picked as his VP, because if he had gone for Marco Rubio, that maybe meant he wanted someone who could help him get elected. If he went for Doug Burgum, the North Dakota governor, maybe he wanted somebody to help him govern, a sort of adult in the room who could get things done. But that if he went for JD Vance, that was him clearly saying the most important thing was following the MAGA agenda, and his nationalist populism was going to be what was very much to the fore. Do you think that's why JD Vance is on the ticket?
Sarah, I think that's a good point, and that's right on. That because JD Vance matches so closely with the kind of right-wing populism that Donald Trump has espoused, I think we know the direction that a second Trump term is going to be heading towards, which is trade restrictions, immigration restrictions, curtailing U.S. foreign policy. I think U.S. support for Ukraine and the Ukrainian war against the Russians is going to go right out, because that's something that J.D. Vance has been very outspoken about. I think if this ticket is elected, it cements the move that the Republican Party has had towards Trumpism and towards this Trumpist populism, in a way that a pick of Rubio, who then would be elevated maybe to the heir apparent in 2028, would be very different. Rubio would be a very different kind of an inheritor of political power than J.D. Vance would be if J.D. Vance is now in a position in 2028, if Trump wins, to run for president himself. Yeah,
do you think he is the heir apparent now? I mean, the vice president often is considered to be, and of course Donald Trump can only serve one more term if he's re-elected in November. So, what, J.D. Vance for 2 terms, maybe with Don Jr. as his running mate? I've always wondered how Donald Trump was going to try and pass this on into some kind of family dynasty, and it wasn't obvious, but yeah, maybe pick Don Jr.'s best mate and assume the two of them will be on the ticket in 28.
Oh wow, that would be certainly something interesting to see where it went from there. But yeah, I think JD Vance, I think a vice president naturally would be the inheritor. If Donald Trump is still popular at the end of 4 years, if he wins, then JD Vance will be in a good spot. And remember, Donald Trump will be a lame duck, as they say, someone who can't run again as soon as he's elected, if he is elected in November. So instantly after Donald Trump is elected, the maneuvering will begin for who will replace him. And there'll be a lot of Republicans who are vying for that. But because of the way Donald Trump has designated Vance as his running mate, given these circumstances and the unique nature of this, I think it does position JD Vance to be someone who will be looked at by Donald Trump's loyalists, the people who are here at this convention this week, as someone who can carry on that legacy.
Now, of course, there's a huge question hanging over what Donald Trump's going to be like when he turns up. I mean, he's been through this absolutely extraordinary experience. I mean, he came really, really close to being killed on Saturday. You can see from the television pictures how close. I mean, this bullet grazed his ear, and if he hadn't turned his head at the precise moment he did, he probably would have been shot dead. That's got to be transformative in anybody. It's got to do something to you as a person. He's given a few interviews saying, oh, he's going to bring a message of national unity to the convention and that he wants to change the tone of the campaign. I mean, we'll see how long that lasts. Picking JD Vance as his vice president maybe doesn't necessarily contribute to national harmonious discourse. But, I mean, it's going to be fascinating to see which kind of Mr. Trump turns up.
Yeah, I mean, a near-death experience has transformative effects on people, and even if it hasn't on Donald Trump, it gives him the potential to frame it as such, to kind of leave his past behind and say, I'm a new person. All that chaos that some voters may remember from his first term, that's changed because he's changed. Now, we've been waiting for Donald Trump to pivot, predicting Donald Trump might pivot for 8 years now, whether it was when he first started running, when he was on the debate stage, when he became the nominee, when he took the oath of office. All of that never panned out. It's been the same Donald Trump from the very beginning. Nothing has changed. So I don't know if I would go so far as to predict this is the likely course from here, but that path, if he wants it, is certainly open.
And people have been talking about him as a martyr, a saint, a hero. Now, of course, he's got devotees rather than delegates at this conference, and they adore him even long before this attempted assassination. But it's going to be fascinating, I think, to see what kind of reception he gets here, because when you hear his supporters saying they think that he was saved by the hand of God, that this was a divine intervention that kept Donald Trump alive, I think they believe it, don't they? I mean, that's not metaphorical.
I mean, he has, it's near messianic. It's a cult following, hero worship, whatever you want to call it. There is that level of enthusiasm. I suspect that the arena will erupt when he walks in tonight. And it is because everyone here, you don't get to be a delegate here anymore without being dedicated to Donald Trump. The ones who don't like him, they stayed home. And in fact, Mitch McConnell, the senator from Kentucky, the Senate minority leader, the person who has managed the Senate for the Republicans for going on almost 10 years now, when he showed up during the roll call of states earlier today to announce how Kentucky voted in their primaries, he was booed. He was booed by the crowd. And that just shows you that the old guard establishment Republicans, even really effective ones like Mitch McConnell, they're passing from the scene. It's not their Republican Party anymore, it's Donald Trump's.
And in fact, it's definitely Donald Trump's, because he was officially adopted as the nominee today. Is that right? He's not going to give his speech. He's not going to accept the nomination until Thursday. But he's now got it, has he? He is the candidate.
He's got it. We could all go home. It's done. I mean, the official part of it, he was nominated, and JD Vance was by acclamation nominated as his vice presidential pick. So, like, the official part's done. It's all speechifying. It's all music. It's all balloon drops and going out to bars afterwards here in Milwaukee. It's the fun part of the Republican Party.
Well, they might get to go out to bars afterwards. We get to Americast afterwards.
We get to do work.
There was another big piece of news for Donald Trump today, and that was that the judge in the Florida case, in which he's charged with keeping classified documents at his residence in Mar-a-Lago and obstructing justice when the government tried to get them back, she dropped all the charges, all of them. She just dropped the case completely. I mean, she's given a lot of very favourable rulings for Donald Trump before this, but now she has totally dropped it, using as an excuse the Supreme Court ruling from a couple of weeks ago that said presidents were immune from criminal prosecution for things they did as president. But, I mean, we weren't expecting this, Anthony.
No, and actually I popped on to talk about it a little bit on the previous episode of Americast, and it was just breaking at that time. And this is going to only throw fuel, gasoline, petrol, whatever you want to call it, into the fires here at the Republican convention, because Donald Trump can take the stage and say, they're already throwing out my court cases, and he's calling for all of them to be thrown out. And you mentioned Eileen Cannon, the judge here, pointing to that Supreme Court decision, pointing to one concurring opinion in that Supreme Court decision in particular, and that was Justice Clarence Thomas's opinion. That isn't the holding of the court, but he just kind of said in his own little writing that, really, honestly, all of these special counsels are bogus and they should all be disbanded. Eileen Cannon saw that, took some legal arguments from other scholars and Trump's own lawyers and said, hey, you're right, and today would be a great time to just throw it all out.
Now, it's a really big deal getting that case dropped, but I tell you what it made me think of was, it's less than 3 weeks since that debate in Atlanta where Joe Biden turned up and just crumbled to pieces on the debate stage practically, and all Donald Trump had to do was stand there in order to look like he was just, winning the election simply by having turned up. And then it has just been this extraordinary run where he got the Supreme Court ruling in his favour saying he can't be prosecuted, so that may mean that the January 6th case against him gets thrown out, and it could completely transform what he does as president if he's re-elected as well. As a result of that, the sentencing in his New York hush money conviction got put off. He survived this attempted assassination. It's just an extraordinary run.
Throw in 2 weeks of Democrats forming a circular firing squad and calling for the removal of their own nominee a month before their convention. Everything is breaking Donald Trump's way this past few weeks. And yet, if you look at polls, they're still close. I mean, that's the remarkable thing. We talk about how much upheaval there's been over the past few months and how much chaos and how many major news stories that have made us stay up in the middle of the night covering them and throwing all our plans to the wind. But all of that hasn't changed how most Americans feel about this race, these two candidates. It's going to be close. It's within the margin of error. Donald Trump has a slight advantage. None of that's changed. We'll see what happens when the polls start coming out after this convention, once the near assassination attempt really starts to sink in. But, at this point, I would have to predict that not much is going to change. It's going to be tight.
But no polls have been done since the shooting. I mean, I saw one published today, another New York Times one, had Trump up in Pennsylvania, which would be devastating to Joe Biden if he lost Pennsylvania, wouldn't it? But do you really think we're not going to see a more substantial change once people are asked how they feel after they've seen him survive an assassination attempt?
Well, I guess let's think about it. If you didn't like Donald Trump, would you start to like him and be in favor of him just because he was nearly hit by a bullet? I don't know. I mean, how does that change how people feel about these two candidates? If seeing Joe Biden bumble and stumble on stage for 90 minutes didn't change the fundamental dynamics of this, why would Donald Trump nearly being assassinated change it either? Maybe they feel a little bit more about him being a human, being vulnerable, but it still doesn't make people who didn't like him. Or, maybe I'm wrong. We'll see, I guess.
Yeah, it's just when you saw those photographs, and it was more telling in the still photographs than it was in the TV pictures, of him raising his fist in the air as he was being taken off the stage with the blood on his face. And there's one of them that looks like the Iwo Jima monument. Right. It's got the American flag in the background. He's got his fist in the air, a couple of Secret Service agents on either side of him. It looks as though it's been staged to be an iconic American photograph. You glance at that and you just think, that's the picture that won him the election, don't you?
Yeah, I'm not going to go that far. Evan Vucci from Associated Press took that photo. Incredible. He's a nice guy, too. I travel with him on the pool all the time. And same with Doug Mills, the New York Times photographer, who also took some iconic photographs of that moment and put their lives at risk to get in position to do that quite remarkably. But I wouldn't go so far as to say that. I think that, yes, there might be some sympathy for him, but I don't think it fundamentally changes this race, because I just don't think that people feel that way, think that way. But like I said, time will tell whether I'm right or wrong much more quickly than my JD Vance prediction.
But who is it we're talking about who would have their minds changed? No, of course, I don't think anybody who's a committed Biden voter is suddenly going to turn to Donald Trump just because they were impressed with the way he handled himself after he had been shot at. But, I mean, as we're seeing these polls move at all, we're talking about a tiny number of swing voters in the middle, aren't we? People who are not committed to either candidate, who maybe could be swayed by seeing Joe Biden mess up on the debate stage, or by seeing Donald Trump sort of defiantly getting himself together even though he's being physically attacked on the stage, or maybe they'll be impressed by him coming with a more conciliatory message here to the RNC. But there are some people in this country who are open to persuasion. Yeah,
and you might see those people shift a little bit, and a little shift is certainly in a close race more than enough to tilt it one way or the other. Something else actually kind of interesting I saw today, being in the arena watching all these delegates, is that they were pumping their fists and shouting, fight, 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 which is what Donald Trump said right after that assassination attempt. That is something I think that we'll see more and more of. Like, this could become, like a red MAGA hat, kind of the gesture that embodies support for Donald Trump. Raised fist. Fight, fight, fight. That could be their new slogan.
There are a lot of red MAGA hats on sale here. I've been wondering if we need to take one back to put in our new podcast studio in Washington, D.C., because we need some better merch in there. And there's some very fun things. There's a ridiculous red, white, and blue stars and stripes, furry elephant, which is, of course, the Republican symbol, that's wearing a Vote Trump t-shirt. Now, maybe we should just go for the classic red hat.
I think it might be good. You can bring that home. You can be spotted the BBC journalist walking onto the plane carrying a red MAGA hat. Not me.
Well, because in a month we'll be at the Democrats convention, so we can bring something back. So we'll be politically balanced.
You
at least.
Explain that to the people who spot you.
So what are you most looking forward to? I mean, obviously the big highlight is Donald Trump giving his speech on Thursday night. What else should we be looking out for?
Well, it'll be interesting to see JD Vance on Wednesday night giving his vice presidential acceptance speech. I covered his campaign in the Senate 2 years ago in Ohio. He's a good public speaker. He does look young, although the beard helps. That's actually kind of funny. He is the first major presidential candidate in 70 years for the U.S. to have a beard.
Well, and a couple of weeks ago, I think it was Politico was reporting that he was probably going to get ruled out of the contention because Donald Trump hates facial hair. And then he himself said that he quite liked JD Vance's beard. He made a point of saying that at an event where he was on stage with him. We should have taken the clue then that it meant he was definitely picking Vance.
He said he made him look like a young Abraham Lincoln, although funnily enough, Abraham Lincoln when he was young did not have a beard. He grew the beard when he became president. But so back to what you were asking. I mean, yeah, JD Vance giving that speech on Wednesday, I think will be interesting. I want to see what Nikki Haley has to say, because she was a late add to this convention lineup. She said she wasn't invited, but now after the assassination attempt, she might come and help, again, preach the gospel of unity, party unity.
But she had already pledged her delegates to Donald Trump before the shooting. She spent her whole campaign when she was running against him saying he's not fit to be president. He shouldn't be allowed in the Oval Office. And now she's going to get her delegates to back him, and she says that she'll vote for him herself. I mean, what?
Yeah, she's going to get up there and say, I never mind. But, yeah, I mean, handing over your delegates, not too unusual. Once you're beaten,
when you disagree with the candidate, not when you say he is fundamentally unfit for office. Right. People don't say that about their opponents in their own party very often.
I will be curious to see what kind of reception she gets here, given that Mitch McConnell got booed. Will Nikki Haley be embraced by the party faithful now, or are they going to remember what she said even more than maybe Donald Trump does?
Yeah, he does seem able to forget people who have insulted him. For somebody who seems to have a very thin skin and get very upset in the moment, he's able to get over it.
Yeah, as long as they
kiss his ass,
bend the knee, then yeah, he seems to kind of let bygones be bygones. But anyone else that you're looking for in the next few days?
Do you know who I spotted in the audience? Liz Truss. And Nigel Farage is supposed to be coming as well, I think. So you never know. We might end up with a whole bunch of Brits here too. Are we going to see Melania, she has, I haven't seen her turn up at anything. I mean, she's done a couple of events. I mean, literally like a couple of events, and I haven't seen her. Will I see her here?
Yeah, her events have been either at Mar-a-Lago or in New York, and they've been for like gay Republican groups, or very niche kind of things. She released a statement after Donald Trump was nearly killed, talking about him personally and her love for him. She is coming. That was the word that we got from the Republican Party, although I don't think she's going to speak. She's not on the speaking list. If you remember 8 years ago, she spoke at the Republican convention in Ohio, gave a good speech, and then people were like, this seems kind of familiar. They checked, and it was borrowed heavily from a Michelle Obama speech at a Democratic convention 4 years earlier.
Yes, probably best to stay away from that. Maybe we should check her statement that she put out after the shooting then and see what that was inspired by. That's a little bit mean.
Well, I think the festivities are about to start up on the convention floor, so we got to get back to work, Sarah.
Yeah, we're going to bring as many episodes as we can from here. So in the next day or two, you'll probably hear from us again, and we will keep you up to date with what's happening on stage and everything that's happening behind the scenes here at the RNC.
All right, until then, see y'all later.
Bye.
Americast from BBC News.
Thanks for listening to Americast from BBC News. You can subscribe to this podcast on the free BBC Sounds app, which is now available worldwide.